Before I get in my lesson, I'd like to thank Sister Natasha for this opportunity to be part of your Follow Through Friday. I give honor to you and to your husband as well, and I pray blessings over both of you. Well, today I'll be reading some scriptures from 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1 through 18, and I'm going to be talking about Hannah. Elkanah had two wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Every year, Elkanah went to the city of Shiloh to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord. And the Bible says that when the time was for Elkanah to offer, he would give a portion to Peninnah and her sons and her daughters. But to Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah. But the Lord had shut up her womb, so she couldn't have children. In verse 6 it reads, "And her adversary also provoked her sore, for to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb." I looked up adversary, and it means someone that fights against something or someone. The word provoke means to deliberately make someone annoyed or angry. The word fret means to constantly or visibly be worried or anxious. Well, Peninnah was Hannah's adversary. Peninnah would deliberately remind Hannah that she couldn't have a baby. She provoked her so much that Hannah was downhearted. Her heart had to hurt so bad. I could only put myself in her place, and I can't even imagine how horrible that was. I'm sure Hannah got annoyed and angry too. The Bible doesn't say how long this went on, but I believe that Peninnah provoked Hannah for many, many years. Well, in verse 7 it reads, "And as he did so year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, so she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat." I think it got to the place where Hannah was broken. She probably felt like she was at the end of her rope. She couldn't take it anymore, being reminded time and time again that she couldn't have a baby. Tears didn't just flow down her face, but she wept. Have you ever been to the place where you just cried your eyes out over a situation and be so stressed that you just couldn't eat? Well, that's how Hannah was. She got to a place where she just couldn't hide those tears anymore. She just wept. She couldn't control herself, and then she just couldn't eat. Well, that's what the devil, our adversary, wants to do to us. He wants to provoke us to the point that this causes us to worry or be anxious. He wants to do that to us, but we can't let the devil stress us out. We need to be warriors for God, not warriors. I want to be a warrior for God. And I know whoever's listening today wants to be a warrior for God. Well, in verse 8, it reads, "Elkanah, her husband, said, Hannah, why weepest thou, and why eatest thou not? Am I not better to thee than 10 sons? I know Elkanah knew Hannah's greatest desire was to have a baby. He's seen how much his wife was hurting. I think he tried to comfort her and encourage her, because verse 9 says Hannah ate. We can confide in friends. We can tell them what's going on with our life. Just kind of unload with that friend, and they can encourage us and try to tell us, it's going to be all right, But sometimes we need just to fall on our knees to God in prayer. And I believe that's what Hannah did that day. She needed to go in the temple and pray. So as she entered the temple, Eli the priest sat upon a seat by a post of the temple. Because the Bible says in verse 10, Hannah was in bitterness of soul and prayed unto the Lord and wept sore. Hannah was greatly distressed that day. She had a hard cry. It was probably one of those ugly cries. But in her prayer to God, she vowed to him that if he would give her a baby boy, she would give him back to God. That she said, I will let him serve you all the days of his life. So as she continued in prayer, Hannah was praying in her mind, so only her lips were moving. And Eli the priest watched Hannah praying, and he seen her lips moving, but he couldn't hear her voice. So he thought she was drunk. So Eli approached her and said, are you drunk? In verse 15 it says, and Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. So Hannah that day gave every hurt, every anger, every disappointment to God that day. Sometimes we have to fall on our knees and just lay all our burdens at his feet and give it all to him. And that's what Hannah did that day. And then in verse 17, Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. In verse 18 it says, and she said, let thy handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. Even though Hannah poured out her soul to the Lord that day, she still had a sorrowful spirit. That's what she said in verse 15. I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. It wasn't until Eli the priest spoke a word to her that made a difference in her life. She left the temple with an appetite and no more sadness. How awesome. That just touched my heart when I read that. All those years of worrying and being sad were all gone after a man of God spoke a word to her situation. How important it is for us to have a pastor, a man of God that can minister to us, to speak a word in our life. I am so thankful that God has blessed me with a man of God, my pastor, that preaches the word. He doesn't water it down, but he preaches what I need to hear. And I am so thankful. What a blessing. And you know, there's something about going to church, worshiping with your brothers and sisters in the Lord. Church is where we can draw our strength from. Because you know what? We can't make it by ourselves. We need each other. So my challenge to you today is to reach out to someone that may be downhearted or depressed or sad, or they have that anxious or worrisome spirit about them. Just speak a word of encouragement today. You know, just a few words like go in peace can make a world of difference to someone. So I appreciate once again for this opportunity, and I pray that everyone has a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless.